Hi, my name's Dave. I'm a Wiradjuri fella living in Dunghutti country, and I think I've found something of Indigenous archaeological significance. Bear with me for a tick. Now, sorry about the poor quality video and sound, but I figured this was the quickest way that I could explain this. You can probably hear my dog snoring in the background, and my computer's really slow. There's going to be a lot of edits in this, so just bear with me until the end if you can. Just watch till the end and then make up your own opinion. Now, I'm talking about uh, a thing that concerns the Clybucca Middens, or the Clybucca Midden complex. Now, firstly, I'll explain what a midden is. A midden is a dumping area for domestic refuse, often consisting of bone, shells, uh, and other food waste. So, fish bones, seashells, oyster shells, crab shells, uh, fish guts and stuff, all their waste and refuse. And some of these middens are really quite quite big. Uh, Now, the thing about the Clybucca middens is they actually stretch from here in Clybucca all the way up here to Scott's Head. Um, and in the 70s, they excavated, some fellas went in there and checked them out, and they checked out here what they call Clybucca 1, Clybucca 2, and Clybucca 3. And I don't know if you can tell in the picture, but you can see this grey area here. Now, that is called the Pleistocene coastline. And what that is they reckon about 6,000 years ago that the coastline water level dropped. So that there is the old coastline from about 6,000 years ago. And some of the mystery about the Clybucca middens is that, especially around this one here, number 3, Clybucca 3, that they done tests on it and they find it's about 3,000 years old. Whereas other Aboriginal artifacts that you find inland are way older because, yeah, only 6,000 years ago, all this was underwater and this here was the coastline. So to look at that size of some of their middens, and even over that span of time, that's a lot of old seafood and rubbish and stuff. When you're thinking about a 14-kilometre complex, it goes all the way up here, the coastline. Well, I think I have found something that may explain why, or how at least. Now, just to double check of what I've seen, of what I found, I went and checked council records, and the only construction that's ever been done in the area is here where they built a levee wall around here, and they cut off all of this, which is known as the Yarrahapney wetlands. So that's the only work they've done in the area. They made a little floodgate here, but then they done that in the 60s, but then they come back in the early 2000s, and they opened it up again. And basically, this gap you see here is the only way for a boat to get into these wetlands here, the Yarrahapney wetlands. That's the old levee bank that the council built. So, which brings us to what I found, I think. So, here is Google Earth's picture of the area, and around here is the levee bank that was there and later opened up just over here, just in there, if you zoom in. And I was actually found this when I was using Google Earth to look for a camping spot because this here is a camping area called the Golden Hole. Now, the Golden Hole was a traditional meeting place of the Dunghutti, and I hope I'm saying this right, the Gamanya people, uh, and the whole area has cultural significance for them. So that's very important to acknowledge as well. And that's how I come across this. That's when I noticed this up here. Now, zoom in on it so you can clearly see it here, this line here. I'm going to zoom in it even more. Now, I recognize that, to me, that there is clearly an old Aboriginal fish trap where they would let as the water level, as the tide came in, the fish would swim into this deeper part. And as the tide went out, what they'd do is throw trees, branches and bushes in the gaps here to act like nets. So as the water came out, they just catch the fish in there. And as the water level went down there very low, they just walk through with their spears and net and pick out the fish. And you can see that this keeps going up and around here. Now before I follow that up there, I just want to show you just another bit down here before we get too far ahead of ourselves. If you look down here so if you go down here and look at the bottom of this wall here, that you can see under the water that wall there used to continue across here. And it may have been taken out by floods or something, because this area is prone to floods. Remember the floodgates the council put down there? Anyway, so now we're going to follow this line all the way up the creek and see how far it goes. And you will see it. See it continuing up here? It actually goes around the bend along here. And we're going to keep following this. And you can just sort of see it up here. And just before you think it's gone, if you look at this section up here, in the middle of a swamp, that prominent row all the way up through this creek here, I believe that's indigenous man built. And also you notice that these ones here have got vegetation on them, whereas the other ones further down the creek didn't have so much. So these are older. So if this was built, they actually built it in this direction, and we're following it backwards. Now bear with me, there's more. There's a lot more. So we follow this prominent line of trees here. And by now you're saying, yeah, it's just a tree line following a creek. But look, it's basically on one side of a creek. There's a thinner line on that side and one side of that creek. And I'll get back to that bit in a minute. But I want to show you this bit up the top here first, which could explain that. Now, then I found this area here. And what made this spot here sort of stand out is that, once again, you can see the prominent row of trees here at the bottom, and along here, you can also see a line here, a line here, a line here, and even a thin line of trees along here, where they could have string nets through here. So as the water came through these creeks here, it would have drained off. And see how there's nothing else growing there? Because it used to be salt water a long time ago. Anyway, bear with me, there's more. So when I noticed this, we'll just zoom back out a little bit, hopefully. Which brings me back to the creek. Remember, with the line coming up here? And I'll zoom out even more. And you can sort of see on the landscape that this all here used to be wetlands, and that prominent line there is actually a levee or a watercourse or an aqueduct keeping the water in the creek. Now, there's further proof of this up over the other side. I'll show you this other bit first. Look. So as you follow the creek around and you look here, once again, on completely different ground again, the prominent row of trees here, which directed that this creek here to go around this hill, I'm guessing there's a hill here, and down that way. Now, watch this. This is the other bit that I just noticed, that I noticed earlier today. So if we zoom out here, somebody might have already seen it. If you zoom out here, you can see that this whole area used to be a wetlands. And that's when I noticed, before I show you the big thing that I noticed, I'll zoom in here. I'll zoom right up in here and show you just a couple of quick points. I think if we go right up over here, at the top here. Now, just a couple of quick points, is that you can see here that if we have to get in here, there are tracks here that we can drive in. Now it looks like if we zoom right in down here, you zoom right in down here, you can see that there's a beekeeper. He's got his boxes in there, and you can actually see he's got his trailer parked in here, and up here where he's been doing donuts in the paddock. Anyway, so we'll get back to the, now I'm going to show you the big one. Watch this. So once again, we're going to zoom right back out at this, what looks like used to be a watercourse. Right through here. And then I noticed something else. Nothing growing, nothing growing, nothing growing, nothing growing. But in here, rich vegetation. So nothing growing because used to be salt water. Nothing growing because used to be, but here. So I zoomed in on this. And you can see on that the shapes of the original ancient fish trap. That started, and I say original because if you zoom back out again, oh man, this computer, sorry about my computer. Remember that Pleistocene coastline we were talking about before? Right there. This used to be the coast. If you zoom right back in again, come on computer, zoom in. Right up on here. That some of these shapes here, and some of those here, resemble the Brewarrina fish traps, but in a much, much bigger scale. And I say much bigger scale because just this area here is the size of a football field. And if you look down here, if you notice, if you zoom in on each one of these areas here, you'll notice, and I'll zoom in on this one, the big one at the bottom here, to show you that each area has a deeper area and a runoff. You can actually see this much better on a mobile phone, but so we zoom way back out again. You can clearly see that line, the line here. We move way back up again. Where's our original? Oh, down here. You can see the line goes through here. You can see it curls through there, around here. And also, remember our original, the levee wall that the council built in the 60s? Well, if you zoom in here, you'll see that each one of these little gaps is also a perfect place to filter through fish and seafood as it comes out of this incredible big system here. Just another bit of a clue of where we're talking about. Remember at the start, Clybucca 1? It's over here. It's just there. That's how close. You tell me if you can't see that there, that line. Crawling right through, making this the biggest Aboriginal fish trap and also ancient fish trap in the world. We can see it clearly here, but that's because we're in drought. This is what the area usually looks like. We haven't been able to see it before because we couldn't. Now we're in drought, she pops out.